willing to hop in here real quick? William, how are
Good.
you?
Good. How are you? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. A little tired. Had a busy day today, but I'm ready to talk some show choir.
Yeah, just one of those Mondays, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I got caught up doing a few writing things for Illinois athletics today. I had exams today, so a lot of action on my end today.
So are you do you work for Illinois Athletics or are you just doing independent coverage?
Independent coverage. So I do this blog site called the Champagne Room here in Champaign. And I currently write for women's basketball, which they just had a huge win over Indiana today. So that's kind of why I was really busy today. They were ranked like 14th or 12th or something like that. So I've been busy on that scale. But yeah, just a little independent site that I joined about 2 years ago. And yeah, I've been happy doing it. But it also helps doing this stuff. So that's
Yeah.
why I kind of like doing
Well,
it.
yeah, I mean, I also have some other sports going on. I have the Daytona 500 on in the
Oh,
background
yeah.
here.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am part of the incredibly rare show choir ex NASCAR crossover demographic. Uh, there are 3 people in that demographic. But regardless, it's been a busy day for homeroom show choir as well. Our North Texas show choir invitational review piece went out. LD Bell took their first career win in that one last Thursday, and we'll touch on that a little bit here coming up in a bit. But I think as of right now, it's just about time to get started. First off, we do want to say that this is Show Choir Nation. This is a homeroom show choir podcast. I am William. To my top is Ethan, and hopefully we'll have Adam joining in here a little bit. This is episode number 8, and we do just want to kick off this episode by sending our condolences and our best wishes to everyone affected by the loss of Robert Wells, who was the main character of Burbank's 2012 Prodigal Show. I know that show has been very impactful for so many people, and we here at Homeroom Show Choir definitely want to send all our thoughts and condolences to the Wells family, and to show that as part of the broader show choir community, we are right there with them. With that being said, this was the middle of February, which means that it is prime show choir season for most circuits across the country. I think we're just about there with everybody. California is up and running. Virginia held its first competition this past weekend. All of these circuits that started in January are still going. So this is that 3-week period where we've got pretty much everybody in the country going. With that being said, we are going to move on to results right away. We're going to kick this one off with the Tupelo King City Classic down in Mississippi. And before we even get to the results, I texted a couple people who were at Tupelo. And for being an inaugural event, I heard nothing but the absolute best things about this event. This was held in the Tupelo Arena. I forget what the corporate name of it is. But this was not held at a high school. This was not held at a theater. This was held at an arena. And I believe Cedar Rapids Kennedy is the only other competition that does this yearly, is hold it in a proper like sports
Mhm.
arena, quote unquote. But I heard that it was a phenomenal setup, and I heard that this should be a much bigger competition next year. One other thing that I want to note really quickly, we will be taking questions from the chat at about the midpoint of the hour. So stick around until about 7:30, 6:30, 4:30, wherever you're joining us from. And we will be taking some questions from the chat. So Tupelo final results. At the top, we've got Grenada taking home vocals, choreo, and show design. Auburn in second place, Jackson Academy third place, Madison Central fourth place, Oak Grove in fifth place. I've been talking for a while. One last point I want to make before I'll toss this one to you, Ethan. There were 8 finals judges on the panel, which is ridiculous. I don't know the last time I've seen a finals panel that big. Uh, and so they did finals on a ranking system. So Grenada had 7 ones and 1 2. Auburn had essentially 1.5 ones because one judge had Auburn and Grenada tied, and then 6 twos. Jackson Academy went 7 threes and then 1 4. Madison Central won 3, 7 fours, and then Oak Grove went straight fives. So this one looked to be a pretty consensus decision all the way down. But I think the big story here is going to be at the top. what is Tupelo or what is Grenada looking like this year?
That's insane. You have 8 judges. First off, insane thing. Well, you have 8 judges, and 7 of them all think one choir was the top choir. That's insane. That's really good for a boost for Grenada to think that multiple people think that they're on that level. Um, and I like we said so far this season, we think this might be one of those blue moon years for Grenada, and it's starting to look like that. So I don't know what really went on at the competition. Like you said, I've only heard great things too. And plus, like those 8 judges were fantastic judges going down the list. I kept looking at it. I'm like, is this a like end of the year competition? Are we at nationals, HOA? No, we're at Tupelo, and it's their inaugural event. So I can't wait to see what they do next year. For Auburn, second place, I kind of heard that they didn't get out to a hot start at prelims, which you have to perform twice in a day. You don't only get to perform once. Both shows matter. So Grenada took advantage of that. They had 2 great outings, it seemed, and they came out on top.
Yeah, the interesting thing here for me is that Auburn beat Homewood earlier in the year in a one and done, right? Tallahassee had no finals. And so for me, hearing you say that Auburn came out kind of slow in prelims, that's pretty shocking to me because this is a group that made its money earlier in the season in a one and done competition. I think your top three were the top three that people had predicted earlier before the competition. So nothing huge there. I did personally have Auburn Alon sneaking into finals. I had them at the 4. I think that's a lot of credit to Madison Central
Mm-hmm.
for stepping. MC is a group that has gone through a director change this past season, and now they've put together, I believe, 2 finals appearances so far this season. Yeah, they were 5th at Northeast Jones last week. And then Oak Grove is another group that has gone through a director change. Their middle school director actually came up this year to the high school, and their middle school director has done great things with their middle school group. And now that's 2 consecutive finals for Oak Grove. And so Madison Central and Oak Grove, while I don't know if they're on that level of being A-tier Southern Show Choir groups, they're definitely not B tier or C tier or just there in the large division to round it out. Because I think,
Mm.
you kind of wonder about a couple of those groups each year. I think that Madison Central and Oak Grove are definitely there, and they're definitely good finals contenders in the Southern scene, as both choirs have noted multiple times this year. The one mixed group that didn't make finals was Jackson Prep. Jackson Prep was a group that I was actually really high on going into this year. I don't know if April James is still choreographing for them, but just interesting to see Prep miss finals here. They will take another crack at things pretty soon.
Mm.
We will move now to the Davenport Central Great River Show Choir Invitational. This was held in the Adler Theater, so another kind of non-conventional venue for show choir competition. The results here: Johnston Innovation taking home the win and best vocals. Mitchell Friendecu, best choreography, second place. Johnston Synergy popping off their prep group in third place. Mundelein Sound fourth with best band. Davenport North fifth, and Liberty Storm in sixth. Ethan, last week we talked about pretty much all of these groups coming off placements that we didn't know if that's where these groups should have been placed. I think all 6 of these groups all the way down the line can bank solid placements from this. Who stands out to you?
Well, first off, what's going on, Johnson Synergy? What a showing! I mean, you just got third against some very good groups, especially in that state and in that region. So I just want to give them their props.
You want to know
They're kind of
the crazy thing? They
what
were
is that?
also third at this competition 2 years ago.
Oh, that is kind of crazy how it comes up like that.
Yeah, so I can hopefully find the exact lineup for Great River 22 here in just a second. So Johnston Innovation was the grand champ that time. Then Mundelein Sound in second, Johnston Synergy third. Then Davenport North in fourth, Iowa City High in fifth, and Jenks in sixth. So
Wow.
definitely, yeah, that was a little while ago. A lot of things have changed since then, but Johnston Synergy just has a thing for third place
Yeah.
finishes here.
And
Um,
and yeah. Oh,
besides
sorry.
yeah, of the varsity groups, I think who had the best showing in your eyes?
Um, well, we have the same that we keep saying. It feels like every week or every so week, get back comps, and Johnson had a get back comp. Again, they went up against probably one of the best groups in the nation last week, so nothing's held against them as much as some other get back comps we've had earlier this year. But Johnson had a showing. Um, Taking a caption, I thought Mitchell though is caught my eye the most where they ended up in the second spot because so far the season hasn't been like one of those Mitchell years that you see them pop off really in the beginning. But I slowly think they're getting their momentum going forward. They won their first big three caption, vocals, choreography, and band. So they came away uh, with with their choreography award, and I thought that's huge going into next week because it doesn't get any easier for them. Um, but I do think that next week they will break through and get their first win next week. I think it's Bishop Helen. I think so.
Bishop.
Yeah, I think they'll break through at Bishop Helen and finally get that elusive first win.
All right. Yeah, I am seeing a couple questions come into the chat. We have a pretty structured show sheet for the first half of the episode here. So at about 7:30 or 6:30, we'll open it up for questions. And when you do, make sure to use the question button right next to the comment bar so we can feature your questions. But we'll get to those in due time. I actually do agree with you that of the groups, of the varsity groups, that Mitchell is the one that stands out the most to me. Mitchell got swept by a pretty upstart Lincoln East group 2 weeks ago at Lincoln Southwest. Lincoln East coming off a director change this past year, and I don't think that was the result that Friendicu wanted at all. And so for them to come in and take a caption off of Johnston, who a lot of people, myself included, I think had as one of the top 10 show choirs in the nation at the start of this season, I think is phenomenal. I think that FDC is rounding into that traditional form, and they will actually have two shots at winning a competition this Saturday because they will be at both Bishop Heelan and Vermilion in a rare double. So the competitions are roughly 30 minutes away from each other. And so Friendicu is going to do the rare double. Some groups in Indiana do this, not often that we get that west in Mississippi. So I do agree with Mitchell there. I also want to shout out Davenport North. They took a tough split caption loss to Fort Madison last weekend. And Liberty is a group that has kind of been around Davenport North and skill level for these past few years after the pandemic. So for Northside Establishment to pick that one up and kind of take best in class there, I think was a really good opportunity for them as well. And even Liberty as well, banking a finals over Bettendorf, who made finals the previous weekend. Cedar Rapids, Jefferson, Lewis Central, all quality programs. This was a deep finals field.
Oh yeah.
And everyone in that finals field earned it. We're going to move now to the Chesterton Trojan Classic. I know we've got at least a couple people from Indiana in the chat. So we're going to move to Chesterton here. The grand champion of this competition was the Carmel Ambassadors, taking on Best Vocals. Brandon Brio, second place with Best Choreography. Marysville, third place. Wheaton North, fourth place, and Best Band. And then in the women's finals, Carmel Accents taking on Vocals and Choreo over Brandon Bellas and Northrop Allure. In the mixed division, we had 5 groups in finals. We had 4 states represented. Indiana bookending the finals. All different states thrown out in between. I guess same question as Davenport. Who impressed you the most here?
It's Brio. I think Brio impressed me the most, traveling up north and grabbing a caption away from Dwight Jordan and company in Carmel. Coming into this, I believe, even though this is a stack field, I think many of us thought Carmel was going to defend their home turf, but I think majority of us maybe thought a sweep was coming. But Brandon Brio coming out of nowhere. I believe that's Stephen Todd and company. Um, so congratulations to Stephen Todd and Brandon Brio for having a great showing against uh, Carmel, who's on a roll right now. And I think Carmel winning this competition also just ensures how great the Indianapolis scene has been this year. Defending off Brandon Brio, who at least no matter what is top 3 in the South. So that only makes the reputation for Indy go up a little more, which we'll see this upcoming week and how it might unravel a little bit. But I think Brio impressed me the most, and then Marysville slides into that third spot with an impressive outing. And then I think Wheaton North grabbing band is also extremely impressive. Um, Even though they got the 4th spot, winning band against these groups is no easy task. And for the women's finals, insane women's finals with Brandon Bellas, one of the top groups from the South, and then you have, but Carmel holds them off. Carmel holds off their turf, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I am. I'm, I'm kind of disappointed in you because I asked you who impressed you the most, and you named off the top 4 groups at the competition.
Yeah, I know, but hey, I started off with the real one though. I started off with my Brandon Brio because traveling up north is not easy. and especially winning a caption against Carmel, not easy.
That's fair. I will actually pick Carmel. Here's the group that impressed me the most. A lot of times, I think people have a lot of regional pride in their choirs when they go out of region, and I know that's true of Wisconsin, where I'm from, and I know that Brandon had a big band of supporters, and very deservedly so, and they did take a caption away from Carmel, but I think that ultimately the onus was on Carmel to, as you put it, defend their home turf, and ultimately, what did Carmel do? They did just that, and I think it's very very, very hard to beat Carmel singing right now. I just don't know who is going to be beating Carmel singing this year. And we talk about Carmel being on top of the Indianapolis circuit by maybe a hair or two over Center Grove or Franklin Central. And I think Brandon, to their credit, also very much showed that they could compete very well in the Indianapolis scene, taking a caption away from Carmel. I think the women's finals, I think the gap was probably larger between Carmel and Brandon. I don't know if this is if this was as quality of a matchup as the mixed division was, but I still think that it was very, very good. We will move on now to another Indiana competition, and this is the Center Grove Best of the Midwest. I was talking about Center Grove and Franklin Central just a second ago, so we'll talk about them a little bit both here. In first place in the mixed division, no finals here. Franklin Central FC Singers taking home vocals and choreo. North Central Counterpoints, second place. Mount Zion Swing Stations, third place. And then in the women's division, Fisher Sound taking home two captions over Franklin Central and Mount Zion. And then in the small mixed division, Roncalli Royal Rhapsody continues their tear of that division, and Cathedral Irish Adrenaline actually came home as the winner of the small women's division. So lots of things to talk about here. I think the biggest thing that we're going to start with is the large mixed division. Franklin Central, North Central, Mount Zion were the placing choirs. Fishers and Carroll did not place. Is this what we expected? Is this not what we expected? What did we learn?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was kind of what I expected going in, besides maybe the third place and one of the groups who didn't place might have flip-flopped. I believe Fishers had a spot or a chance to get that third spot. But before I go into it, I just want to give a big shout out to Carol for even showing up. I heard that their trailer flipped on the way over to the competition, which I believe there's going to be an article piece written about it maybe here in a little bit by us, which go check that out whenever that's dropped. I can't wait to read it because whoever's writing it definitely knows more about the situation than I did. But I want to give a big shout out to Carol for showing out, and any groups that helped them, because I think that's going to be part of the article too, is how other groups help them and the show choir kindness aspect of show choir. So that'll be cool to read. But back to the results, Franklin Central, when you think of Indianapolis, I personally always think of Franklin Central as one of the most unreal singing groups in the nation. Carmel, though, this season, like you said, has been very impressive. Um, I just had I had a friend there who's from Indianapolis, or he goes to school in Indianapolis, and he said, Franklin Central, and I quote, "They're not real." And I just got to follow him up on. I'm not going to follow up because I think he's right. I just think they're unreal this season. Vocally, they bested North Central for the second time this season, and that's no knock on North Central because they just beat so many good they beat three really good choirs. In Mount Zion, Fishers, and Carroll. Fisher Sound looks like to be the real deal. They'll have another test coming up this next week to see if if they can hold their own. But yeah, I mean they beat some really good choirs, and they beat probably what many think is the second best single gender group in Illinois. So great outings from all these choirs, and again, shout out to Carol for sticking through.
Yeah. The thing that I just want to talk about the most is placings aside, we only had 5 choirs in the large mixed and large women's division, but by golly, this is one of the most loaded 5 choir fields you're going to find anywhere. I mean, usually when we talk about great divisions, it's because there are, 6 or more of them. With this division, there were only 5 choirs, right? And even if Carroll is an outsider and coming from Fort Wayne, and even if Mount Zion is coming from Central Illinois and whatever, this is still a fantastic division. And so if Nathan Matthews says that Franklin Central is unreal this year, I think that's who you were texting. I'll believe him, and I'll believe that Franklin Central is unreal. I hope a video of their show goes up at some point this year. Yeah, I also also just want to give a shout out to both our small division winners. Ron Colley has been cleaning up small mix pretty consistently these past couple of years. And then Cathedral is a program that is very new to the show choir scene. And so for them to come in and win divisions is no small feat in Indianapolis proper. And so props to Cathedral there. They were also second in mixed to Ron Colley. So I think that is also a program to watch. We will move on to our kind of miscellaneous results roundup. I have this titled as upsets on the show sheet. I'll throw in a couple other points here, mainly one. We talked about Clinton last week. The streak is still going. Oak Mountain was phenomenal. Clinton was even more phenomenal. So nothing really too big to report there. But we did have a handful of upsets from this past weekend, and I'll read them off, and then Ethan and I can kind of go back and forth on them a little bit, and then hopefully we can take some questions. So the first one was actually from last week, Thursday. This was at the Legacy North Texas Show Choir Invitational. LD Bell came out and took their first ever win over Keller and Keller Central. And so for a long time, Keller Central was the Titan of Texas Show Choir. And then Keller beat them earlier this year, and now LD Bell has beaten them both. So a huge moment for Bell System there. Mantino Magic just scored a pretty signature win over Glenwood Titan Fever at El Paso Greeley. That's Mantino's first win in almost a decade. In Indiana, Huntington North Varsity Singers as an ISSMA small group won the competition over Avon Accents and Homestead Class Royale, which are two ISSMA large schools. That was at DeKalb. In Ohio, we had Solon Music in Motion taking home a big win over Findlay First Edition. And then at Monona Grove in Wisconsin, Hamilton Synergy was another first-time winner on the weekend. They took home a split caption decision over Wabaunsee Valley Resonance. And then at Rock Bridge in Missouri, Jenks Trojaneers cleared the entire in-state field to snap their 5-year win drought. So a very impressive win. I don't know if it was an upset. I think some people might have favored Jenks. But anytime you snap a 5-year win drought, definitely we'll talk about it on the podcast a little bit. So I kind of shot through 6 real quick there, Ethan. We've got a few minutes before we're going to take questions. What are 1 or 2 that really stand out to you?
I just think this was a great week of show choir. I mean, it's hard to just pick a few of these, but just to pick off what you said, I think Solon beating Findlay. If you beat Findlay, you are the real deal. I think the only choir that's hotter than them in the state right now is ETC, who I think bested them earlier. But they've beaten Grove City, Pequot, Beaver Creek, and now Findlay. I mean, Solon is on fire. Keep it up. I love to see Solon do so well. And then, of course, I got to talk about my home state, Mantino. Huge win. Yeah, like you said, almost a decade. It's been 6 years. Ironically, it was in 2018 at El Paso, which happened to be my freshman year, which is crazy to think about how far Mantino has come. They always put on great shows, but they finally break through, which is impressive to see. And of course, they beat some really good Illinois choirs like Glenwood. And Glenwood is also, I know people might think they're on a down year. They're actually on the come up. So this is still a really big win for Mantino. I just want to give a big shout out to their director, Sean Hoffman, who's been there almost all the way through. And of course, I have to shout out their choreographer and Mantino alum, Michael Telmoni, because he's been there forever and he's graduated from that school. So congratulations to Mantino. I'm excited to see you guys here in a little bit. I wish I could have stuck around El Paso on Saturday night to see you guys perform. I could only be there for Friday, but I know the vibes are great, and congratulations.
Yeah, just kind of segueing on that. I did see Mantino's show at their first competition of the year up at De Pere, and they had a really solid showing. I could tell that it was early season form. There were some vocal moments and some choreography moments that weren't quite there. But you talked about their choreographer, Michael Talamani, and I did not realize that he was a Mantino alum, but his choreography was the most complex that I saw that entire day. So big shout out to Mantino. I got to talk about my home state as well. Sussex Hamilton Synergy. This is a group that has gone through multiple director changes after the pandemic. And so for a group to overcome that many obstacles and still do as well as they did and knocking off Wabaunsee Valley, which is a very, very big name. They may not be, mid 2010s Titan Wabaunsee Valley anymore, but they're still a very good group. And so Hamilton, for a group that didn't make finals their last competition 2 weeks ago, I thought this was a huge moment for Hamilton. I also just want to brag on Texas a little bit more because Texas, nobody really knows about Texas, but the quality of Texas show choir is fantastic. And LD Bell, they brought in a couple of Josh Green arrangements this year. And if you know show choir arrangers, you know Josh Green. They have a couple Garrett Breeze arrangements this year, another big arranger name. They have a couple of Nita Krakauer arrangements this year, another big choreographer name. So LD Bell, the Bell system, really going on strong, and they will be competing this next weekend as well, and we'll be talking about that a little bit in the backside of this episode here. Something else I also want to say is Jenks. You talked about Glenwood as being a program on the come up. I really do believe that with Jenks too. Jenks is a group that also had a leadership change right around the pandemic. They are playing second fiddle in Oklahoma now to Broken Arrow. A lot of people think about Broken Arrow as the Oklahoma group, but Jenks is doing a lot to dispel that notion. They actually just started their own invitational last year, which is one of the biggest competitions in April, so we'll probably be talking about that. But for them to come into Missouri and clear out the field, I think they showed promise at Troy. I think you saw their show at Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan, I think you can talk about that a little bit. But yeah, I'm super happy for Jenks.
Yeah, I was surprised by Jenks coming in. I even remember the episode we were talking, and I said they were actually from a different state because I didn't know much about Jenks. I just knew who they were personally. Yeah, but they came out and they kind of showed up the field a little bit. They kind of surprised a lot of people going in. Um, Again, you had a lot of choirs that were kind of like out of state, which it was like Neo Show. You had Jinx, you had Mount Zion, you had a few other. Miller North, who won grand champions there. But Jinx really had a great showing, and it's kind of cool to see them get their first win in a few years.
Yeah, for sure. And so at this point, it is 7:28 or 6:28. And so I think we're going to open it up for questions here. And so how this is going to work is that please use the question button that's just to the right of the comment bar. So that way we can actually feature your question on screen when we're responding to it. We have maybe 10 or 15 minutes to talk about questions here. So Ethan will pick whatever questions he finds best. And he and I will shoot the pile on them for a few minutes. I did see that we have some comments in here. We got LD Bell System in the chat. They're excited for Saturday, so congrats again on your win. Circle City Show Choir Nathan says Ethan on the road. Ethan, I think you've traveled to a couple competitions this year, right?
Yes, I have. I have traveled, and it's kind of funny, Nathan. You said that I was this close to going to Center Grove this weekend, but I decided we had too much coverage there. We can't have three members there all at once. I decided, we'll save that for Wheaton Warrenville when we're all up there. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I see a comment though about how do you enjoy Star Power. I thought that competition was pretty cool. I have it pulled up here because I saw some comments earlier about it. Um, I'm happy for Miller North that they finally broke through. They've been playing second fiddle for a little bit in their past competitions, but I kind of expected them to break through. Bloomington Kennedy is again a great choir. So we had a split caption for those who don't know. We had Miller North winning with best vocals and People's Choice. Then we had Bloomington Kennedy getting best choreography and two best soloists. So I can't wait to see those, especially during the end of the year when we do our awards, because I think I've seen their names come up a few times. Bemidji getting fifth is kind of a surprise to me, but again, Bemidji's kind of been those choirs who've been up and down in recent years, but again, they're always a strong choir. If you have any thoughts on that, Will, go ahead.
Yeah.
As some questions pop in.
Yeah. For sure. So if you see any actual questions, feel free to feature them. And I think they'll show up on my end as well. I've actually been to Waconia multiple times. I went to Waconia my first time in 2019 when I was competing there. We got walloped. Don't try looking up the results because it's not going to look good. And then I also went there actually last year in 2023. I think Waconia is a great venue, great kids. Love everything about it. Millard North is a group that I caught last year with their school show. Thought they were phenomenal, very well deserving of the win this year. And I think I might see Bloomington Kennedy later on this year. So I'll save my thoughts for that. First featured question, thoughts on ETC's big season this year and thoughts on ETC's win this past weekend. Ethan, you touched on ETC when we were talking a little bit about Solon. So I think you will lead off our discussion here.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know the enrollment numbers of ETC, but the way it kind of seems are kind of on the smaller scale. we've actually had their director reach out to us a few weeks ago and actually send us a video of their show, which was super nice. That just kind of gives us the hint that they're one of those choirs that always is super nice. They're informative. They want people to be informed. I just think they're one of those choirs that is just hot right now. I forgot how they did last year, but I know they're always middle of the pack, Ohio. I I don't know how it really sits in the Ohio show choir scene because I know Maryland is still very good, or Marysville, sorry. I know Marysville's still really good. Then Finley is still good, even though they just lost to Solon, and then they already beat Solon this year. So if you kind of have to put them in place, it's like Marysville or ETSC is the top of that state right now.
Yes. So ETC is actually a school of the musical arts.
Hmm.
So they don't have an per se. They're kind of in the area of Akron or Cuyahoga Valley.
Oh,
Cuyahoga Falls had a show choir for a long time as well. And because of that nature, whereas they're not a traditional school program, I think they are at much more of a danger of not having that infrastructure and that support year in and year out. And so ETC is having as good of a season as you can have right now. They have taken best vocals and best choreography in all three of their competitions. They will be at Bishop Luers at the beginning of March. It's the only other competition I see on showchoir.com right now. And they will face off against Carroll, who's a very competent program, as we talked about. But that could be uh, the season, the undefeated season for ETC. And so I think that's about as good as you can get. Maybe a matchup with Marysville, maybe a matchup with Finley. But yeah, in terms of the cards they were dealt, it's as good of a season as you can get. Friend of the show, Bradley Davis, thanks for dropping by. What matchup are you most excited about for the remainder of this season? Ethan, I'll let you go first, and if you take the obvious one, I'll pivot. But if you have one of, I will take the obvious one. So, what do you think?
well, I think there's kind of two that I'm looking forward to. So I hope I don't steal either of the ones you might be thinking of. I think this next weekend coming up in Indy, I think that's huge for how things play out with Carmel and Center Grove. Um, and then I'm going to skip over Center Grove going to Wheaton. Wheaton, of course. I just think, how does Center Grove go up against South? I mean, like South will, Los Alamitos. I think that's gonna be really cool, actually. But you know what my favorite matchup? I've been thinking about this the whole time. It's not a choir versus a choir. It's a choir versus a performance area or stage. I am so intrigued. I know this is kind of off your question, Bradley, and I know Will come back to it, but I'm so intrigued of how Los Al will do in the gym, and especially a gym like Wheaton South. It's just something that keeps coming to my head. Like, how are they going to do it? Um, that's it's weird, but that's the matchup I'm most excited for the remainder of the season. Will, you can actually answer this question if you want to.
Yeah, well, Wheaton Warrenville South is the obvious answer here, right? And Show Choir Nationals is the other obvious answer here. And I'm going to pivot and I'm going to take the third obvious answer, which I think is a little less obvious. And that's going to be the Oceanside Sound Off. This one is in the middle of April out in California. So this one, if you kind of tail off as soon as your choir's done competing, you may not hear about it. But I do believe that Los Al, Burbank, and John Burroughs will all be there this season. So it will be another matchup of the California Big Three. Speaking of the California Big Three, I have it on good authority that Los Al will do their absolute best to avoid any time penalties anywhere they go this year. So I know that was an issue last year with Los Al, well, it was more of an issue with John Burroughs, but for sure Los Al will be on the up and ups for time this year. A couple other ones that I want to shout out quick. Boulder Creek is hosting potentially Arizona's first show choir competition
Ooh,
this weekend. They did a non-competitive festival last year. I do believe it's competitive this year. And then also Vista Ridge in Colorado is hosting a festival this year. Colorado has traditionally been a state competition only state. And so I don't know the details of this. I don't really know who's going, but I'm excited to see show choir expand in a couple of circuits. We've got a question from Reese here. Thank you, Reese, for sending this in. Thoughts about Hamilton Synergy winning Grand Champ and Monona Grove after not making finals at De Pere? Ethan, I'll take this one
yep.
because I've heard of Synergy before this or not.
No, I have,
Um,
but
all right.
you know more clearly.
Yeah. So Synergy is a group that's actually only 10 years old, and so in the show choir scheme of things, it's not that old at all. And my choir was a pretty much an even contemporary of Hamilton throughout my last couple of years of high school. So Hamilton's a group that I definitely respect a lot. And I actually did see them at De Pere where they didn't make finals. I thought their vocals were just frankly sloppy in some areas. I know it's cold and flu season, so I don't know if they were missing kids or what. But this is the time of season for a lot of circuits where shows turn corners and shows turn corners fast. And I think this was a case of Hamilton's show turned a corner because Sauk Prairie was second at De Pere and Hamilton was seventh in prelims. And then Hamilton comes around and beats Sauk Prairie at Monona Grove. And so it's not like a handful of shows go backwards. It's that one show goes forwards. And so this is a case, I think, where Hamilton's show really did turn a corner. Those are basically my thoughts. Ethan, anything to add from you?
I mean, like I said earlier, I don't know much about Hamilton, but like you said, they're only 10 years old or so. That's incredible that they beat a group that I personally know in Waubonsie Valley. Waubonsie Valley, like we mentioned a little bit ago, is still a kind of a titan in Illinois a little bit, even though, like we said, it's not 2010's Waubonsie. So, I mean, if you beat Hamilton, especially after not making final, or no, excuse me, if you beat Waubonsie Valley as Hamilton and you didn't make finals at Prairie, one foot in front of the other. So, congratulations, Hamilton. And I think we'll answer one or two more questions.
Oh,
Can't read it.
long one.
Ooh,
All right. Pacifica Encore got 2 wins in California Intermediate, back-to-back comps at Kennedy and Bonita. This extends their win streak to 7 in a row with 3 straight sweeps. Thoughts on them? So Pacifica is an intermediate mixed choir, like the question says. And the thing about Pacifica is that, also as the question says, they were at Kennedy and Bonita. So this is a group that doesn't really run the main competition circuit. We think of Burroughs, Burbank, and Los Al as being 3 of the biggest competitions in California. We can chuck Oceanside in there as well, and Vista, back when Vista hosted a competition. But these kind of smaller, more low-key California festivals, I think, is where a lot of the storylines of California tend to emerge. We've got one coming up at Chaparral this weekend that just has an absolutely bogus advanced mixed small. You've got Diamond Bar, Glendora, JFK. It's incredible. It's so hard to gauge, when you would want a group to step up to the next level. And perhaps that's just not where Pacifica is at. And if they're not there, I think it's just great that they have a little bit of a dynasty going in a division that doesn't get talked about as much.
yeah. I think it's 7 GCs in a row now
Yeah.
for Pacifica. So I guess that conversation will be held for a little while now. I
Yeah.
think we'll do one more question and then I think we'll move on. Ooh, there's so many good questions. I appreciate all you guys asking your questions. I think this one's kind of interesting. I'll let you go first. I'll read it out. If you can steal one choir to be and compete in your state, what choir would that be?
Goodness. There are so many like obvious answers
I
here,
know.
right? I don't want to say like, oh, I would have Clinton come to Wisconsin, or I would have Los come to Wisconsin. Uh, and it's tough because the one answer to me that jumps out is Omaha West Side Amazing Technicolor Show Choir.
Yeah.
They have been in Wisconsin in recent years. They're going to be in Wisconsin this year, and then snow happened. So that was like the one for me. In terms of actual big choirs, I think I would actually go Daniel Hand because Wisconsin is a state that there are a few groups that are starting to tend towards that story show-ish direction. And progress has been slow on the judging sheet. I love the judges that we have in Wisconsin, but for a long time, Wisconsin Show Choir has been rather bland on the grand scheme of things. And Daniel Hand Vibe brings certainly a great style of show choir, along with phenomenal vocals and choreography. So besides even being treated to the great spectacle that is a Daniel Hand performance, I think it would do a lot to open a lot of eyes here in Wisconsin.
Wow, I think that's like the most perfect answer because I honestly think the same thing with Daniel Hand. But to just go off track a little bit, some that came to my mind was Troy Buchanan, but they're basically an Illinois choir already. Um, Millard North, or Millard North and Millard West. I think those are two good choirs. Like if you plugged them into Illinois right now, they'd be contending for the top spots. I think one that came to me the most. Oh man, I think it's either Fairfield or Marysville. I'm thinking Marysville. I don't know. I'm kind of biased towards my Dwight groups, but I think if you took Marysville and you stuck them in Illinois, that you would think that they were from Illinois. Think that completely. I know you went on the scale of like, what does Wisconsin not have? And I was kind of on the scale of like, what would fit best into the current scene and still be one of those top choirs. So I think Marysville Sweeteners Unlimited would be my answer, even though Daniel Hand would be nice to have.
All right, yeah, and I think that's our last question. I'm speaking this into existence here. We may just have to do a
Oh
Q&A session.
yeah, we have a
Uh,
lot of questions here.
just spend an hour dumping on questions. So perhaps we'll do that. I will throw an honorable mention in for Oak Mountain Singers.
Mm,
For whatever reason, Oak Mountain seems to be a really captivating group for me. So I'll toss in an honorable mention for Oak Mountain there. And plus, that would mean that the Muses would come too.
yeah.
And the Muses, fantastic. So yeah, moving on to the previews, we're going to go right back to where we finished the results section, and that is in Indiana. We've got the Franklin Central Hoosier Show Choir Classic coming up here. We've got a 6-choir large mixed division, and that consists of Carmel, Center Grove, Fishers, Brownsburg, Northrop, and Columbus East. A 7-choir large women's division. We've got all 6 of those, plus the competitive debut of Westfield Illumination. And then in small mixed, we've got a pretty heavy matchup. We've got Roncalli and then Pendleton Heights, and then Winfield from West Virginia and Center Grove Surround Sound. Of those divisions, Ethan, which one stands out to you?
It's hard to look past the top two large mix groups. And I know I kind of stay on the large mix a lot, but it's really hard to look past these two titans. Um, it's just crazy that it's finally time for Cinder Grove Carmel. I mean, we've been looking forward to this for a while to see how everything shakes out this season. But I also think Fishers and Brownsburg really do have a shot to throw a wrench in the whole party. I don't know to what extent, what would be a caption, maybe a placement, but I do think they have the opportunity to do so. But I also think the women's division needs its own shout out because Fisher Sound is what I've heard is the best women's group in the nation. Some to say. Of course, there's a lot of groups that they won't go up against, but just speaking on it, I hear they're really good this season. And of course, they just had an amazing outing last weekend. So I just think going up against indie choirs, they're all going to be going at you. They're all going to be going for the neck. They're all going to be trying to knock you down a peg. So I think it's going to be big for Fisher Sound to see if they can hold off and retain that title of being the best, at least in Indianapolis. And then if I'm going these predictions, people might call me crazy, and I know we talked about some things earlier in the show, but I think Carmel might leave the door open here a little bit. I think they might leave the door open. I don't know. Open just enough where Center Grove wins it for the first. I think it'll be like the first time they beat Carmel since 2000, like 22 at like HOA. I think it's HOA Orlando. I think it's HOA Orlando were the last time they beat Carmel, which is kind of funny because it's off turf, which take that how you please. But I think Center Grove is going to walk away with best vocals. I think they're going to take the win. I think Carmel's going to get second with its best vocals. I know the vocal caption weighs more in Indianapolis, more than anywhere else apparently. So, but I think best overall show will be Center Grove's, and I think Brownsburg is going to take that 3 spot, and I think Fishers is going to round it out there. And then for my women's, I think Fisher Sound will hold on. Um, I haven't seen Carmel Center or Deb Tones yet, but I think Deb Tones might edge out Carmel just a tad. So that's going to be my order. I'm going to go Fisher Sound, Center Grove, and Carmel.
Yeah, well, geez, I don't know. It's just Carmel impressed me the most at Chesterton this past weekend, and I'd be a real hypocrite if I didn't pick them to win here. So I'll take Carmel with 2 captions over Center Grove. You know, if they took Franklin Central with 2 captions, I think they can take Center Grove with 2 captions. I think Fishers holds off Brownsburg for the 3. I think Brownsburg is a great upstart this year. I think that Fishers ultimately is going to have that momentum to keep the 3 spot. As for the women's division, I think you talked about that one pretty much ad nauseum. In terms of small mixed, I'm just actually really looking forward to Roncalli and Pendleton because Roncalli has run the table in this division, and I think that Pendleton is oftentimes thought of as that next choir up, and so this is that shot at Roncalli. And so this is Pendleton's chance to show, hey, we are right here there too. I think even if Pendleton takes 1 caption off Roncalli, I think it'll still be a very successful day.
Okay.
Winfield in from West Virginia as well. I have no idea where they'll land. I don't think they'll win, but I think they're definitely a good shot for second, potentially here too. Moving on to Texas, we're going to go right back. Talked about LD Bell a little bit before. This is the Keller Central Lone Star Invitational. This is Texas's oldest show choir invitational. I believe this is year number 12 for them this year. We've got 3 days of competition, which doesn't happen a lot of places. We've got 51 total show choirs competing, which is just massive. I know Homestead in Indiana was in the high 40s for a couple years. I think maybe right before and right
Hmm.
after the pandemic. I think Los Al has done 3 days occasionally. I think they've gotten close to 50. I think Oceanside is a 3-dayer this year. I think they may not. I would be surprised if Oceanside cracks the 50 mark. But yeah, 51 choirs, which is ridiculous. Some notable mixed choirs, Broken Arrow, which a lot of people in the Midwest and I guess kind of the South know about. We've also got LD Bell, who we were talking about beforehand. Keller Blue Lights, they're under new direction this year. Fort Worth Southwest, who just bagged a finals appearance at Omaha South. So that's another choir that travels. And then Prattville is also coming in from Alabama. Um, just basing off those groups, a couple things that stand out to me. Number one, Broken Arrow has cleaned up this competition whenever they've come. They have faced some pretty stiff competition from the likes of Jackson Prep when Jackson Prep was on the ups and came here. But they will have the usual horde of Texans. And then also Prattville. This is a small division Alabama choir, and they have division wins this year. But I think Prattville is going to be one of the more interesting stories to see how an Alabama small mixed group stacks up against all these Texas groups. Any names that you recognize, or is this just kind of a free for all for you?
I mean, it is kind of a free for all, but I know some of these names and some of these choirs are notable. First off, what a fundraiser! I mean, 51 choir. Like, I can't even imagine how much dough they roll in after this. But kidding all aside, but if I was a host, I would already be exhausted. You need like 3 weeks to get that off. Like at our competitions, we have on a good comp, let's say 15, maybe at most. But it's like 51. That's insane. So I mean, shout out to them for even like holding a competition this size. But everything's bigger in Texas, I guess. So it's kind of cool to see. Um, I don't think any Texas group is going to knock down Broken Arrow yet. I feel like in years upcoming, it might happen. I think they might shock a group from out of state. I forgot which Keller I saw. I don't know if I saw Keller or Keller Central at Wheaton.
Keller
Uh,
Central.
Keller Central. I saw them, and I was impressed with their show because they made finals in a really impressive field. But yeah, I do think Texas show choir's on the up and up. Like we said earlier with LD Bell, impressive outing last week. But if I was going to go down the rankings or on the predictions, I think Broken Arrow still holds Texas off with a sweep. But I'm going to put LD Bell in that second spot. You talked him up a lot, and you gave me a lot of valuable information on their arrangements, and I think that they might hold off Keller here, especially with the director change. And then I'm going to round out my top four was Fort Worth Southwest.
Yeah. So this is a very interesting one. The other crazy part, just touching one more time on the number of choirs, is that we've got 22 high school groups going on Saturday, plus finals, which is just incredible. The first performance is at 7:30.
That's
7:30.
insane. That's
Yeah.
insane.
So everything's bigger earlier and later in time. But the other thing is that since this is second, pretty much everybody comes here. So even in addition to the groups I already mentioned, you've got Fossil Ridge Pantheon, who is a young choir, very young post-pandemic choir, but has already done very well for themselves. Legacy Silver Elite, who I believe has won this competition in the past. Arlington Corliers, who have placed very well here. Timber Creek Aerodynamics, who's been on the podium this year already. Texas City Soundations, who is known to pop off from time
Hmm.
to time. So this is just something that I think is absolutely wild. If I had to take a top six here, I would go Broken Arrow at the 1. I'll take them with vocals and choreo. I'll go LD Bell 2, Keller 3, Fossil Ridge 4, Timber Creek 5, and Legacy at the 6. So a bold prediction. I have Fort Worth Southwest missing finals. Hopefully no Texas people are on here because I think I would draw a lot of heat for that. In my Wisconsin Midwesterner opinion, those are my top 6. We'll move on to the Norris Fields of Talent. This one just south of Lincoln, Nebraska, named after one of the greatest Nebraskans of all time. I believe George Norris. There's like a gazillion things named after him. in Nebraska. Like his name is everywhere. Also middle school in Omaha. So in the mixed division here, we've got Norwalk Sound Adrenaline, Papillion La Vista Free Spirit, Papillion La Vista South Titanium, Ankeny Centennial Spectrum, Lincoln East Express, and Lincoln Southwest Resonance. A couple interesting notes about this one. This is Ankeny Centennial's first time going to Nebraska. They were originally supposed to go to this competition in 2018, and then it got iced out. So I guess 6 years later, we have got Ankeny Centennial going to Nebraska. They will face the undefeated Lincoln Southwest, Lincoln East, who swept Mitchell their last time out, Papillion La Vista, who's been a winner this year, and Papio South, who has not won. And we know that the fire is burning just as bad as always to get back in the win column. So many groups, so many stories. Ethan, how do you see this one shaking?
Man, I mean, I know they named this competition years ago, but Fields of Talent is no lie. This is like the talent here is insane. Like when I was looking at it beforehand and I was trying to make a prediction, I was like, I could see this going five different ways, at least five different win. Yeah, I think five different groups could win this competition. Um, yeah, I just I feel like something crazy might happen here. I think that we are gonna have an undefeated choir lose to a hungrier choir. This is which this is such a test because it's a test for all these choirs. Because I mean, if Lincoln Southwest, I know there's what's their show. I mean, we talk about it millions of times. It's a nursery rhyme, right? It's
Chicken
chicken.
Little.
Not nurse. Yeah, Chicken Little. Which first off, insane show. I haven't seen anything on Ankeny Centennial. I've only heard some things, but I just think that they might come out a little hungry. And at this specific competition, I feel like they might get a step on Lincoln Southwest. I don't know. I could be completely wrong on this, but I'm gonna go Ankeny Centennial at the one. I'm gonna do no captions because I think this can go anywhere. Nathan, you are completely right. If I have Center Grove over Carmel, I'm gonna take Ankeny Centennial over the hot Lincoln Southwest. So we're gonna have Ankeny Centennial at the one, Lincoln Southwest in the two. I'm gonna go Papio South. They've had a solid season so far. I'm gonna have them in the three. I kind of feel bad about putting Lincoln East in the four, but I mean, at a competition like that's what happens. I'm gonna go Papio in the fifth. I'm gonna have Norwalk. They're gonna hold off the mixed division for finals.
All right. You talked about the name Fields of Talent and how it was a fitting name for this competition. So Norris is actually a consolidated school district from a number of different villages, kind of outside of Lincoln. And so the population of the area where the zip code of the school is 650, that's the population of Firth. The school is literally surrounded by fields. So and so this is the classic example of the smaller the town, aka in this case, a school literally in cornfields, the bigger the show choir. So
Yep.
shout out Firth for completely proving the old adage correct. Couple comments in the chat about talking about different competitions. We're booked pretty much until the end of the hour. So we'll have this one and one more. But we'll see if we can get to some different circuits next week. In terms of where I think this one is going to go, this is going to sound unbelievable, but
I'm ready for it.
I actually have Ankeny Centennial in fourth.
Hey,
So
hey, that's just good show choir. That's just a good show choir. That's just a good show choir.
I'm going to get killed for this. I am going to get texts after this. It is not going to be good. I have Lincoln Southwest on top. I have Papio South. Not breaking into the win column yet, but I think second is higher than they've been so far this year. And then I actually have Lincoln East in third. I love Lincoln East. Lincoln East is, I think, my second favorite show choir in Nebraska behind Omaha West Side. So I have Lincoln East at the three, showing up really well. And then I also kind of at the bottom, question mark, feels so weird to say, Ankeny Centennial at the four. I believe they're doing a Schitt's Creek
That's what
show this year.
it is.
Yep.
Yes.
And then I would have Papio Free Spirit at the five. And then actually at the six, I believe Ankeny Centennial Vortex. No,
Chaos.
Centennial Vortex is going to be here. Which prep do I want?
I know. I kept looking at the list and I was like, screw it. I'm going Norwalk.
You know what? I will take Papio South Titan Radiance.
Okay.
I will take Papio South Titan Radiance at the six.
Okay.
So that's Norris. I'm getting no points for that prediction. Yes. Uh,
Things are, yeah.
yes, whoever put that comment in, you are absolutely right. I'm getting no points for that. Ankeny Centennial just swept Urbandale. Fantastic point. Welcome to welcome to the end of the episode, guys. And if you stuck it through, you're a real one. We're gonna move on to our final comp of the week. Done. We're gonna go to the Petal Show Choir Invitational in the extra large division here. Clinton, Attaché, Brandon Brio, Grenada Visions, Enterprise, Encores, and Biloxi Sound Surge. In the large division, West Jones Imagination, Jackson Prep, Revion. Middle mixed, Rome, South Jones, Summerall, Pearl River Central. And we've just got another 8 choirs in small division. Seems like this happens every week. Touched on Clinton during the mid portion of the episode. Oh crap! There are 5 laps left in the Daytona 500.
Oh no, who's in the lead right
Ross
now?
Chastain is in the lead right now.
Oh.
So Clinton beat Oak Mountain, and now Clinton is going to face Brandon and Grenada. Brandon took a caption off Carmel. Grenada just swept Auburn. Do I even have to ask the question, or are you just going to answer it for me?
I'm gonna keep it crazy. I'm gonna keep it a little crazy. Into the episode, not as crazy as you think. No, not as crazy as you think, but it's gonna be a little crazy. I've been told until Clinton loses to not bet against Clinton losing, so I'm not gonna
Okay.
do that. But instead, I'm gonna Clinton winning with best vocals and best overall effect. Grenada in second, and then I'm gonna have Brandon was choreo in the 3, which that is kind of crazy, but it's not too crazy. And then I have Enterprise rounded it up.
All right. Well, man, that's man. I
I don't know, man.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? I mean, I'll screw it. I'll take Clinton vocals, choreo, show design, or overall effect, whatever caption they award here. I actually don't know what Clinton's show is this year. I just will have to trust that it's another great Clinton show. I'll actually take Brandon at the 2. I'm not sleeping on Grenada. I promise. I'm not sleeping on Grenada. I just think that this is one of those times where we have so many great show choirs
Mm-hmm.
that a group like Grenada is going to be third. Grenada was third at Jackson Academy, and everyone was like, wow, this is so great.
Yeah.
And then I feel like if Grenada is going to be third here, people are going to be like, oh, wow, it's like a disappointment. No, it's not true. That's not true. So that's me and my soapbox. I think we have 3 fantastic choirs here. I actually have West Jones at the 4. West Jones has been a fantastic vocal choir this year. So maybe they should go up and compete in Indianapolis. Who knows? But I have West Jones at the 4, and then I will take Enterprise to round it out. I think Enterprise has strung together a couple of good finals appearances this year here as well. Small mixed, we've got 8 choirs. The South usually only awards 3 placements. So my top 3 going into this are going to be in this order. We've got Pisgah Energy, West Marion New Era, and Laurel Showstoppers. So I don't know
Tough one.
if you've got a prediction for small mix, or if you're just going to let 8 choirs
I'm
duke it out.
gonna let 8 choirs duke it out, but I'm kind of down for your prediction. I like Pixar a lot, and I mean West Jones is no sleep. So
All right. So with that being said, this is the end of today's episode. Who knows? We may have to schedule an impromptu questions episode, perhaps.
I'm down.
Stay tuned.
I'm down.
We'll have to see when we can make it happen. So also come back next week to the regularly scheduled Monday show to see me absolutely get torched for putting Ankeny Centennial in 4th. See Ethan get torched for even daring to predict that Clinton would lose a caption. That so please come and flame us for whatever happens this weekend. With that being said, it is the top of the hour, so we will be jumping off here. This podcast is available on Spotify and YouTube right after the show. If you did not catch the full show, so within the hour, it'll be up on Spotify and YouTube. Tons of articles coming out this week on homeroomshowchoir.com. So for Ethan, I am William. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a great episode of Show Choir Nation.
See everyone.